of Greg Media and founder of worldsbestsalestrainer.com. Today we're going to cover step 4 of the 5 steps of the sales call. Now this is all part of our free video training that you can find on our website at www.worldsbestsalestrainer.com. All you have to do is register and you can see all my videos for free. So let's get started. This is the step that you actually start selling. You've been putting off all of your clients' and prospects' questions up until now. So you're going to have somebody who's really eager to listen to what you have to say when you get started. 3. Needs assessment or probing. We found out a lot about our client or our prospect, what they really were looking for in a product. We also found out what interested them about our product or service. We also found out if we were speaking to the right person. We reaffirmed the fact that we're talking to the decision maker or what the whole process was that they use in order to find out you're not talking to the decision maker. I usually stop the sales presentation at this, answer some general questions, and hold back the prices and the customization of my product or service in order to be able to have something when I come back to the decision maker. I also try and get into the decision maker if they're in the same office building or whatever. I use whatever tactic I can to get in front of the decision maker at that time. If not, reschedule the appointment and speak to the person who is going to be able to make the decision. Because you're really not here to educate, you're not here to get everybody to know about your product, you're here to sell your product or service. Now the next thing that will happen is sometimes you'll be speaking to what's called an influencer. In today's age, we have a lot of technology, and CEOs and owners of companies are not always able to make decisions on their own. So they bring in people to influence them or to consult with them. Now these people have a lot of influence, but they're not the decision maker. It's still the decision maker's money. So at one point you got to be able to sell the decision maker after you've been able to convince the influencer. Because the fact of the matter is, no matter how good he is, he's not as good as you are. You need to sell your product as much as you possibly can. So by now you should have a pretty good rapport, and you've got a good read on them. Now one thing that sales professionals don't think about is the prospect or client has been giving you all kinds of clues on the type of person they want you to be. Now I know this is kind of abstract, but they're telling you how to sell them throughout the whole process. They're also telling you the kind of person that they want to deal with. And obviously, I don't want you to change and not be yourself, but you can focus on the aspects of your personality that coincide with the kind of person that they want. And this can be anything from being a really funny person to somebody who's very, very serious and very intellectual. So take these clues in and present your product or service in a manner in which is going to interest them the most. The next part is the favorite part of this step for me. This is when you look into the prospect's or client's eyes and you say, you know, I understand your business really, really well, and I know we can help you. I know we can deliver this product or service. It's going to save you money and it's going to save you time, or whatever, you know, benefit and features that your particular product or service will give the client. But this is where you assure them that you know in your heart or intellectually that you're going to be able to save them some time or save them some money or accomplish the things that they need accomplished. So there are a few things that you want to keep in mind before you start your presentation. One of them is that when whatever you say or whatever you ask the client, you always want to get agreement. When you present your product or service and you show them a particular feature and you tell them why you feel that this is going to be great for them, which is the benefit, you need to get agreement. Now back when I was trained in the old school, they used to make us get a verbal agreement on that and actually not go on until you got a verbal agreement. Now if you've got a pretty good read on your client and you can see that they are agreeing with you through their body language, you may want to get a verbal agreement every few times, but you certainly don't need to get one every time. If they're congruent, in other words, if their body language is telling you that they like what you're saying, yeah, you could just move on to the next feature and the several benefits. Now, the one thing, sales presentations obviously differ from industry to industry and even from company to company within the same industry. But there's three things that are pretty much the same. First of all, you're going to show your product or service. Second, you're going to overcome objections. And thirdly, you're going to justify the price. So with these three things in mind, let's take one at a time. Explaining your product is very simple. This is what your company has spent a lot of time and a lot of effort teaching you to do. And now that you've got the tools that you've received so far in this step, you should be able to do that a lot more effectively. The second part is overcoming objections. Now, I could literally do a whole, and have done whole trainings on objections. But here's just a couple things to keep in mind. First of all, objections are either emotional, financial, or practical. Now, let's start off with emotional. If somebody has an emotional objection, one of the techniques that I use is I basically relate it to something that they do with their clients. So if somebody says, well, I don't know, that's what they all say. And I'll say, well, what do you tell your clients when you're in front of them when they say the same thing to you? And what I do is I'm reframing the position where I'm bringing them to be more sympathetic with me. By being able to put my situation in something that they've experienced, it makes it a lot easier for them to empathize with me. And a lot of times it will get us through the emotional objections. You should be completely armed by your company to know how to handle the financial objections. The whole idea about selling anything is that it has to have a reason to buy it, and it has to either be better priced, it needs to save more money, better quality, so therefore you have less maintenance, whatever your particular product or service does. But there's always a financial element in there that will make it logical for somebody to buy your product or big money for. So when they do ask you a question that is of a practical or a logical basis, you need to be able to answer it. And you need to be able to answer it using critical thinking. And you also be able to keep your mission, what you're trying to accomplish, and not sabotage it by saying something that is counter to what you're trying to accomplish. And this is where it's kind of difficult. You need to work out, and you should have this worked out before you walk into a client. When they say, well, how do I use this, 7 stories high, or how do, I understand that, this just came out, or whatever the objection is going to be about the product, you need to have a rehearsed answer to it. And it also has to be logical, but it also has to not get in the way of you being able to sell the product or service. And now you're going to do what's called a set. Now, if you remember in step 3, we did what's called a soft set. This is an actual set. And this, again, is something that should be rehearsed, something that you should already have on your mind and be able to come out right at the appropriate time. Now, the set that I use quite often is, I will say, well, now that I know everything, now that we've pretty much established what's going to work for you, and I go through the process of the sale. And this is before I propose anything. I just will come out and I'll say, well, this is what we're going to do. We're going to either send you a proposal via email, or here's a contract, or whatever vehicle you guys use. And I explain to them the process of selling, of how I go through the order process. And then I sit back and I watch what they say. And then we go to the next step. So you've been taken through the 4 steps of the sales call. The 5th step obviously is closing the sale, and that and all the other videos are available at www.worldsbestsalestrainer.com. And please register. You understand each other pretty well, and you've got a good read on them. Now, one thing that all right. This is my beautiful wife who's helping me with the video today.